Part 54. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 539. The originally Grand Shenzhou Tianlong battle just stopped like this. Fortunately, Wu Yu arrived after the battle. If he had arrived before, the battle between him and Wushan Suechi might have ended. At this time, all the sect masters who received the communication talisman looked serious. Everyone was very confused. For a moment, countless people looked around, curious, and wanted to know what the result would be. Wu Yu had an ominous premonition in his heart, so he was even more confused. The content on the communication talisman was probably not much, so the top masters present quickly read it. After reading it, they looked serious, even the Demon's Candle Emperor and Infant Emperor, their faces were not very good at this time. That's right, even they received the communication talisman. The Emperor's face was solemn, and he said, "Everyone, my elder brother never jokes. This matter has a major relationship with the devouring heaven demon mansion. The Shenzhou Tianlong war is temporarily stopped. Is there any problem?" Everyone's face was very strange, with doubts and shock. Just when they were wavering, the Taixu saint said, "I declare that the Shenzhou Tianlong war will be terminated immediately. Except for everyone who has received the communication talisman, everyone must stay here before new orders. No one is allowed to act privately. Those who have received the communication talisman will immediately follow me to the Yanhuang Emperor City. Do you have any opinions, masters and sect leaders? Time may be very tight." With the Taixu saint taking the lead, the leaders of the Shushan Immortal Gate, Gasuferi Peak, etc. nodded one after another. Basically, they had no opinions. Their faces were very heavy, and even a little anxious. In this way, people who didn't know the truth were like ants on a hot pot. Even the Shenzhou Tianlong war could be terminated, which basically meant that the ghost cultivators attacked the East China Sea. When the others had no objection, the emperor suddenly said to the infant emperor and the candle emperor, "What do you two decide? You also know what happened to the ghost emperor last time. If Shenzhou falls, the endless demon sea will definitely not exist. This matter concerns the survival of Shenzhou, and you two can never stay out of it." The infant emperor is also decisive in doing things. He didn't hesitate much and said directly, "Okay, let's go and see what this old ghost is up to." After the decision, of course they acted directly. Most of them left in the Yuan Shenhuaxing realm. Before leaving, the strong men once again emphasized that the Shenzhou Tianlong war was stopped, and no one could leave here, let alone take action privately, unless they received new orders. The orders of the sect masters and the masters were all strong men in the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. They were all old and new to obey them. However, it was still very painful to wait here without knowing what was going to happen. However, the content of the communication talisman was quickly spread because one or two sect masters told the disciples. Faintly, Wu Yu seemed to have heard the content, which should be, "Stop the Tianlong war in Shenzhou and rush to Yanhuang Ancient Well. It is about the devouring demon ancestor and the survival of Shenzhou. Quickly. Yanhuang Ancient Well is the most important place in Yanhuang Emperor City. Not to mention outsiders, even the genius Murong Su of Yanhuang Emperor City cannot enter. Just like the Samsara cave in Shushan, the Lord of Yanhuang City actually let people in, and mentioned the words devouring demon ancestor and the survival of Shenzhou. No wonder the sect masters and masters are anxious. But the problem is, isn't the ghost emperor dead? For a while, the news spread out and still caused a certain panic. "Wu Yu, follow me." Wu Yu originally thought that he would be left here waiting blindly, but he didn't expect that when the emperor marshal left, he pulled him up. All of them, who were in the Yuan Shenhuaxing realm, used their speed and means to rush towards the direction of Yanhuang Emperor City. Among them, Taixu Saint Lord was in the front and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Obviously, the matter was too important, and he didn't wait for others. Among so many people, the only one who was taken away and did not receive the communication talisman was Wu Yu himself. He didn't know why the emperor took him with him. At this time, the emperor was too fast and left Chengyu and Xianshan in the blink of an eye. Wu Yu had never seen him show such speed. From the solemn eyes of each sect master and headmaster behind him, Wu Yu looked at himself and felt a little nervous. After all, the pressure caused by the ghost emperor before was too great for everyone. "Emperor, do you know what happened?" The hurricane was fierce and the surrounding scenery was blurred, but Wu Yu was still shocked and asked. The emperor said in a deep voice, "There was an accident. I don't know the details, but I only know that he never sent such an urgent communication talisman. It must be a big deal. Brothers have been for many years, and the emperor knows him best." Because of the seriousness of this matter, the emperor's words trembled when he spoke. Wu Yu was shocked. He knew that the lord of Yanhuang City was the relative of the emperor. At this time, he might pay more attention to the safety of the lord than anyone else. He didn't dare to ask more, but pondered. Luo Bin said that the ghost emperor was completely dead. She was sure of this and shouldn't say anything nonsense. But why did this happen? Among the ghost cultivators now, the only ones who have reached the level are Duomingxin Chensu and Tianhai Yafuwei, but these two people can't pose any threat to Yanhuang Imperial City at all. Could it be that the ghost emperor is not dead? Or is there another possibility? There is no new news from the lord of Yanhuang City, so all the speculations for the time being are actually meaningless. Only when we reach Yanhuang Imperial City can we know the truth. Wu Yu, the communication talisman my brother gave me has an extra sentence, which is to let me take you back. I guess it should be related to the matter of the ancient immortal road. Yes. The lord of Yanhuang City has already told Wu Yu about the matter of the ancient immortal road. He taught Wu Yu the two techniques of honoring gods, but he did not ask Wu Yu to become the next lord of Yanhuang City. This was a selfless kindness to Wu Yu. In fact, although he did not worship the Yanhuang City Lord as his master, the two elders, the city lord and the emperor commander, were no different from his master. This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. Wu Yu respected them as much as he respected Feng Xia. Time passed in agony, and the powerful masters of the soul transformation realm arrived at Yanhuang Emperor City one by one. On the other side, Tianxia Sword Immortal and Tianxian Sword Immortal of Shushan Sword Immortal were also coming this way. The Yanhuang City Lord's communication talisman allowed Qiang Sword Immortal to resist coexisting with the infant emperor at this time, but when he was on the road, he would still subconsciously show hatred and murderous intent. Holy Lord Taixu has probably entered the ancient well of Yanhuang. With the emperor's commander around, many Yuan Shen formation realm powerhouses arrived at the city lord's palace in the inner city smoothly. A large number of Yanhuang immortal troops gathered outside the city lord's palace. At this time, they were also quite puzzled, but when they saw the emperor commander, several thousand captains who stayed here immediately came forward and said, "Emperor commander, we found that at least 5,000 Yanhuang immortal army were missing. They had been in the inner city for several days, but within a few days, they all disappeared." Normally this matter would be a big deal, but at this time the emperor could only wave his hand and said, "Quickly make a list and I will deal with it after I get out." He took Wu Yu's arm, and together with the many sect masters and headmasters who came behind him, including the infant emperor and the Zhu emperor who had never been here before, they all went to the interior of the city lord's palace. Not long after, they all appeared in the Yanhuang ancient well. Beside, someone broke into the city lord's palace and broke into the Yanhuang Emperor City. The emperor's commander's face was ashen and irritable, and his face was like a wild beast. When he discovered this, he did not hesitate and led Wu Yu directly into the Yanhuang Emperor City, and others also followed in, and there were other powerful Yuan Shen transformation realm experts from outside who rushed over and followed them in, including Tianxia Sword Immortal and the others. Amidst the rolling yellow sand, Wu Yu arrived at the Yanhuang ancient well. Before he could stand firm, the emperor's commander let out a low roar and led him towards the ancient city. Yellow sand filled the air, and the storm rolled violently. In the yellow sand, Wu Yu, under the extreme speed of the emperor commander, could clearly see the ancient city. However, when he took a closer look, he was shocked to find that this ancient city, which was originally in ruins, had been destroyed. The destruction was so complete that many dilapidated city walls and palaces received a crushing blow, and the entire ancient city was almost razed to the ground. Who comes here to start a war with the city lord? Wu Yu was a little confused. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in the center of the ancient city. This was the most severely damaged place. There was almost no intact land and there were potholes everywhere. However, at this time, Wu Yu saw the Yanhuang city lord. He was sitting cross-legged and swallowing. On the round platform above Tianmo Mansion, his head was lowered. The golden armor on his body was a little tattered at this time, and it was obvious that he had suffered some damage. But what shocked Wu Yu even more was that his originally gray hair turned pale, even pale. Through the hair, you could see his face. The lord of Yanhuang city looked like an old man, but he had never been. He is not as old as he is now, and his face is wrinkled, like a mortal in his 80s or 90s. It is difficult for ordinary ascetics to age like this. And his original body, although not burly, would not be so thin. Seeing such a sluggish and even declining Yanhuang city lord, Wu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He was even more confused as to who could make the Yanhuang city lord become like this. Now he was dying and looked like he was about to die. The holy Lord Taixu next to him must have arrived early. He was also in a hurry and used many methods. However, when the Yanhuang city lord saw that everyone saw it, he waved his hands and said, "Stop fussing, it's useless. I'd better explain the matter as soon as possible. Be clear." At this time, everyone came here and surrounded the Yanhuang city lord. Everyone felt a little scared when they saw the Yanhuang city lord like this. Looking around, it seems that the people fighting are no longer there. The emperor's commander's eyes were startled. He let go of Wu Yu. His eyes were bloodshot, causing him to have veins popping out in a short time. His eyes were wide-eyed. He rushed to the Yanhuang city lord and glared, "You used that thing? What on earth are you doing? What do you think? Do you really want to die?" It's rare to see Emperor Shui be so manic. But Wu Yu still underestimated him. After he finished speaking, the emperor almost knelt down in front of the Yanhuang city lord, hysterical, his thick shoulders twitching, and tears actually flowed from his eyes. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 540. Their brother's current situation and reaction were somewhat beyond everyone's expectations. It seemed that what happened was much more serious than they imagined. Wu Yu was also anxious, but he knew that Yanhuang city lord would make it clear, so he was as quiet as everyone else. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Tell me what happened and how it got to this point. Holy Lord Taixu sighed and said. To be honest, before the war between ghosts and gods, Yanhuang city lord was his only competitor in this divine continent, and it was his existence that seemed to have meaning. But now, Yanhuang city lord looks very bad. The lord of Yanhuang city coughed a few times, and his voice became very old, almost like an old mortal who was about to be buried. His words were also intermittent. The ghost emperor is dead, but the remnant soul of the heaven-swallowing demon ancestor who escaped from here is not dead. He regained control of Duomingchen Zhensu and Tianhaiyu Fuguang, and transformed them into new ghost emperors. You are all in Shangyuan Daozong, and they are here. Although he was in a bad state, at least his thinking was clear, so he made things very clear in just a few sentences. In just a few short sentences, what came out was unimaginably terrifying content. There used to be only one ghost king, which was terrifying enough. I didn't expect that the heaven-swallowing demon ancestor could achieve the step with just his remnant soul. Such unbelievable things are beyond the imagination of their mortal cultivators. It's not that they are unprepared, but that they never imagined that such a thing would happen. The level of the ascetics also determines their imagination. What Yanhuang City Lord said was beyond their imagination, and even if they were prepared in advance, it would probably be of no use. Shensu, when Holy Lord Taixu heard this name, his face became even more gloomy. This name was a stain on his life. To this day, when he hears Duomingshan Shensu, there is an unknown fire in his heart. The emperor's commander's face was terrifyingly gloomy, and with his red eyes, he said word by word, "We have lost more than 5,000 Yanhuang immortal army in the past few days. They must have devoured them. Just like the ghost emperor devoured it." Devour, the world of monasticism. How can you have such ability? The lord of Yanhuang City showed a sad look on his face and said, So many young men have been murdered. Fortunately, I am still here and have no idea. I'm sorry for these young people. At this time, the atmosphere was undoubtedly extremely sad. Wu Yu remembered the appearance of these two people when he destroyed the Hell Palace, and he did not expect that they would make a comeback today, and they would still be the puppets of the heaven-devouring demon ancestor. What are they here for? While everyone waited with bated breath, the lord of Yanhuang City continued, "There are still all the souls of the heaven-devouring demon ancestor in the heaven-devouring demon mansion. The real purpose of the ghost emperor last time and them this time is to free him. Come out and let him truly regenerate. If the heaven-devouring demon ancestor is truly reborn, it will be much scarier than the ghost emperor and others." At this point, everyone became nervous. If they come to release the devouring demon ancestor, what will be the result? How powerful are those two people after possessing the power of the necromancer lord? If it were the ghost emperor's strength back then, the Yanhuang City lord wouldn't be able to stop them. After all, they had two of them. The infant emperor didn't care about the life or death of Yanhuang City lord, and said, "Speak quickly, where are those two people? Has the heaven-devouring demon ancestor been released?" "Shut your stupid mouth," Emperor Shui was furious and turned around and roared. His current state should be very painful. Wu Yu always felt that he knew more things than everyone else. The key thing should be what he said, the city lord used other things. The infant emperor chuckled and said no more. The lord of Yanhuang City did not care about the infant emperor, and spoke calmly, as if he was looking down on life and death, and said, "These two, after devouring thousands of Yanhuang immortal army in our Yanhuang Emperor City, although they are not as good as the Ghost Emperor and the Dead Soul Lord at their peak, many of them Mingshan Zhensu is even more powerful than me. Among them, Duo Mingshan Zhensu wants to destroy the heaven-devouring demon mansion and let the heaven-devouring demon ancestor go." Did they succeed? Holy Lord Taixu asked the question that everyone was most concerned about. At least it seems that the Lord of Yanhuang City is still sitting cross-legged on the round platform, and the round platform does not seem to have been damaged. "No," Yanhuang City Lord said. As soon as these two words came out, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, with expressions of relief on their faces, and even relaxed and laughed. The city lord is really powerful. He can block two ghost emperors. Fortunately, there is a city lord guarding here, otherwise we would be really in danger. I didn't expect this heaven-swallowing demon ancestor to be so weird. It's just a remnant soul, and he's still alive like this. This crisis depends entirely on the city lord. The Yanhuang city lord is now in a very bad condition, but at least he is not dead. All the sect leaders and headmasters are looking at the Yanhuang city lord with sincere admiration, their eyes full of reverence. But Wu Yu noticed that even after hearing the good news, the emperor's expression did not change at all. He was still struggling, even furious. If the lord of Yanhuang city hadn't stretched out his withered palm and put it on his shoulder, he would probably. It was difficult for him to stabilize his emotions at the moment. Why is he so angry? There must be a reason. Just when everyone was relaxing, the Lord of Yanhuang City interrupted them. He said, "I'm sorry, everyone, this disaster is not over yet. Although they did not succeed, I am not actually the opponent of these two, and I cannot really defeat them. Kill them." They escaped, Tianxia Sword Immortal asked. Everyone also guessed like this, so someone said, "This time, we are all gathered here. We must catch them all while they are still as scary as the Ghost Emperor." Unexpectedly, the Lord of Yanhuang City shook his head with difficulty. He was in a particularly bad state now and spoke as if he was insisting. He said, "They didn't escape either. I didn't beat around the bush and told the truth. In fact, they should have succeeded. And I should have been defeated by them, but in the end I chose to use something. This was given to me by the senior who sent me back to Dongsheng Divine Continent when I went to Yanhuang Ancient Territory. This is a picture. The paper talisman is called the Two Worlds Prison Locking Talisman. It is a talisman refined by a cultivator at the pinnacle of the Taoist realm. It is unique in the world and can tear out a world in the space of our world. The space formed a prison and sucked the enemy in. I used the Two Worlds Prison Locking Talisman to imprison these two people. In other words, they were here in Yanhuang Ancient Well, but they were blocked by the space prison of the talisman. That's all, please look here." Following the instructions of the Yanhuang City Lord, everyone saw a wall not far away. Now they suddenly saw that there was a pattern on that wall. The pattern was black lines, and they were a man and a woman. The man looked like a girl. Xuanhuan is extremely handsome, and the woman is a beauty in the world, with a moving figure. The man and woman are motionless, but if you look carefully, you can see the terrifying aura in the lines, like a whirlpool, sucking everyone's eyes. And even swallowed the mind deeply. This is the effect of the Two Worlds Prison Locking Talisman. No one has heard of this talisman, but since it was made by a cultivator at the pinnacle of Taoism, that is, a cultivator who is about to become an immortal, it is obviously not simple. However, judging from the fluctuations of this pattern, everyone was alert. It seemed that this talisman could not trap them forever. "How long can it be trapped?" Holy Lord Tegzu asked. "It can range from about 18 months to 10 months. The specific range should be within this range. After all, this is a talisman that far exceeds my ability. It is already very good to be able to do this. The puppet of the heaven-devouring demon ancestor, no matter it is everyone is terrible. The most terrifying thing is their ability to devour. As long as they don't die, they will become stronger and stronger. For everyone, although the danger has not been resolved, it will be at least 10 months away after all, so the news does not seem so bad." The people present were all strong men from Shenzhou, and they all had some confidence, so what they were probably thinking was that when the time comes for the ban, everyone should work together to kill these two puppets of the heaven-swallowing demon ancestor. The Emperor Commander suddenly said, "Everyone feels at ease, but don't you want to ask why he didn't use the Two Realms Prison Locking Talisman when we dealt with the Ghost Emperor, and instead stayed here today, use?" When everyone thought about it, it was indeed so. Maybe Yanhuang City Lord didn't want to say this, but Emperor Shui couldn't help it. He stood up at this moment, looking embarrassed, very irritable, and said somewhat hysterically, "That's because the one who uses the Two Worlds Prison Locking Talisman, the price is to burn life." In order to activate its effect, the Ghost King had not yet reached the final step, but now, he has used this talisman, which means that his life has been exhausted. "It's over, I'm going to die soon." Boom. The Emperor Commander's words of struggle and pique were like a bolt from the blue to Wu Yu. Everyone's expressions were still relaxed at first, but after hearing these words, everyone's expression stiffened and they stared blankly at the Yanhuang City Lord. They finally knew why the Yanhuang City Lord was so old at this time. It turns out that just relying on his own strength, he is still far inferior to those two. It turns out that he relied on burning his life to activate the talisman, so that everyone could come here safely and have such a long time to prepare. After arriving here, everything was peaceful and nothing seemed to have happened. However, this was what the Lord of Yanhuang City paid for with his own life. After knowing this truth, the Yanhuang City Lord in their eyes has changed. Everyone looked at the Yanhuang City Lord in awe, with a sad expression, and a little dull. Perhaps at this time, even they didn't know what their mood should be. As for Wu Yu, with his piercing eyes, he could clearly see that the Lord of Yanhuang City had aged to the extreme. Now, he was standing on the threshold of life and death. Maybe in the next moment, he would disappear into ashes. Well, Wu Yu had never experienced such a heavy life and death blow. It was difficult for him to even breathe. The main time today was spent on the conception of the follow-up plot. It was already 11 o'clock in the evening when I finished writing 2 chapters. There are 2 chapters in total today. Please look forward to the follow-up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 541. The Prison Locking Talisman of Two Realms. After the Emperor Commander finished speaking, the place fell into deathly silence. The Yuan Shen incarnations felt heavy, staring at the old and dying Yanhuang City Lord, and for a moment they didn't know what to say. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. However, the Lord of Yanhuang City is very open-minded. He said, "You don't need to be sad. Fortunately, this talisman does work. I can guarantee it for at least 10 months. It's just a bit regretful. When the time comes, they will come out of this prison world. When the time comes, I probably won't be able to fight them with everyone. There is a kind of person who guards the city like fate and takes it as his own duty to protect Shenzhou. When necessary, he will not hesitate to sacrifice his life." The words hero alone are not enough to describe him. The Lord of Yanhuang City is such a person. If there is a word, it would be guardian. For the divine continent and for the common people, I dedicated myself to death. The death of Yanhuang City Lord is an irreversible fact. Although he himself was open-minded, people still felt heavy. After being taken away by the Holy Lord Taixu, the people in the form of Yuan Shen half knelt in front of the Yanhuang City Lord. To show your respect. In the end, Yinghuang and Zhuhuang were left. They were a little uncomfortable, but judging from their eyes, they still admired Yanhuang City Lord, a person who sacrificed his life for righteousness, so he was half kneeling on the ground. The Lord of Yanhuang City smiled lightly and said, "Being able to gain the respect of all my close friends before passing away, I can be considered a worthy death without any regrets. But the 2 people who have been banned are the things I am most worried about now. Now I only have time to prepare. I just hope that the day they come out, we will have enough methods to intercept them on the spot. For this, I have made 2 preparations. City Lord, please speak at this time." Holy Lord Taixu looked solemn and bowed his head to him. In fact, there were a few tears in his eyes. If the Lord of Yanhuang City leaves, at least there will be no one comparable to him among the human race. The Lord of Yanhuang City said slowly in a withered voice, "The first-hand preparation is for all of you here. Please try to stay in this ancient city as much of your time as possible, and do your best to be prepared. Once the time comes, come up with something. The best way is to join forces to intercept these 2 without giving them any time to prepare. Of course, we must also be prepared for failure, such as how to arrange the disciples' escape route, protect the foundation of the sect, etc. I don't need to worry about this." Said. This is a matter for the entire divine continent. When that day comes, no one can be immune. Therefore, This first-hand preparation is also a requirement for everyone present. But obviously, judging from the experience of fighting against the Ghost King, this first-hand preparation was actually just a helpless and desperate move. Everyone was waiting for Yanhuang City Lord to reveal his second-hand preparation. At this time, the Yanhuang City Lord's eyes fell on Wu Yu. Seeing Wu Yu's heavy expression, his old face smiled and said, "Wu Yu, come forward." At this time, he was just an elder, an old man. His tone and attitude were just like an ordinary grandpa. Wu Yu had never met his grandpa, but maybe Sun Wudao had given him this feeling. When he arrived in front of the Yanhuang City Lord, he asked Wu Yu to sit on the ground, got straight to the point, and asked, "Have you almost won the first place in the Divine Continent's Tianlong battle?" He has great confidence in Wu Yu. Even he knew that his opponents were Wushan Xueqi and He Taijun. Now that Wu Yu had defeated these two men, he nodded and said, "It's almost done." This result was not beyond the expectations of Yanhuang City Lord. He faced everyone and said, "My second-hand preparation is to let Wu Yu enter the ancient immortal road, let him seize the ancient immortal talisman from the people from the Yanhuang ancient territory, and reach the Yanhuang ancient territory. This is the shortest way for us to get to the Yanhuang ancient territory. After all, we are too far away from the Yanhuang ancient territory, and accidents may happen at any time. When Wu Yu arrives in the Yanhuang ancient territory, he can look for people from the Yanhuang ancient territory and report them. The situation in Dongsheng Divine Continent's Yanhuang Emperor City and the news about the heaven-devouring demon ancestor should alarm them. It would be best if the Yanhuang ancient kingdom dispatches its elites to destroy these two people. This is indeed possible. After all, Yanhuang Emperor City is a branch of the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, the immortal dynasty in the Yanhuang ancient territory, and it is also the place that guards the heaven-devouring demon ancestor. Although it may not be absolutely possible to succeed, it is at least a hope. Now that the battle between Wu Yu and the Wushan blood qi has ended, the infant emperor and the Zhou emperor have no objections. Moreover, to go to a place like the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, only Wu Yu, a person from the Yanhuang Emperor City who has practiced the art of worshipping gods, can do it, and no one else can. These two preparations are very good. We are responsible for fighting these two puppets of the heaven-swallowing demon ancestor, while Wu Yu is responsible for creating miracles and hope. You should have thought it through properly, Holy Lord Taixu said with emotion. Everyone admired these two preparations. In the face of such a huge crisis, Lord Yanhuang sacrificed his life to make all the follow-up arrangements. More than 10 months will allow them to prepare well. This can be regarded as an urgent call. The Lord of Yanhuang City patted his shoulder gently and said, "Wu Yu, I have no choice but to entrust you with such an important task. City Lord, Yanhuang Emperor City has taken me in, and the land of Shenzhou has raised me. No matter what I do, it is my duty. Besides, if I can help in this matter, I will definitely do my best." Wu Yu said firmly. He was still afraid that he wouldn't be able to help. The Lord of Yanhuang City trusted himself even more by entrusting him with such an important task, and Wu Yu absolutely did not want to live up to the expectations of a guardian. Looking at the old Yanhuang City Lord, there was still an unspeakable pain and depression in his chest, as well as suppressed anger and roar. The heaven-swallowing demon ancestor at his feet, and the many people in the prison of two worlds Mingshan Zhensu and Tianhai Yafugui have become his enemies, people he must kill in this life. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. No matter how much time passes, Wu Yu will never forget that today the Lord of Yanhuang City dedicated his life to the divine continent. He is a man of great righteousness and has set a good example for the heroes of China. Seeing that Wu Yu was in an agitated mood, which was similar to that of the Emperor Commander, Yanhuang City Lord's withered lips trembled a little. He shook his head and said, "Wu Yu, you need to know that as long as we ascetics cannot become immortals, we will not be able to escape the exhaustion of our lifespan, but there is a limit to life and death. If I don't die today, I will die one day. This is the rule of heaven and earth, and no one can defy it. The same death can be lighter than a feather, struggling to die in the final limit of life and death, or it can be heavier than Mount Tai. Although I cannot say that my death was earth-shattering today, I feel that I have a clear conscience. In my life, there have been myths and legends. I have experienced glory and guilt. At this age, I have actually experienced everything and have everything. The only important task is to pass on the Yanhuang Emperor City. Only then can I complete my mission. But reality has blocked my mission. But I at least protected Shenzhou with my death for a while. To me, this is already a great kindness and great blessing. You don't need to be sad because of my departure. You should be happy for me. At least my life, Emperor Yan, is wonderful. Even the ending is wonderful. I am already very satisfied. As for the only inheritance I missed, when I saw you, I actually knew that my inheritance had been successful. The Lord of Yanhuang City spoke intermittently for a long time. About life and death, about mission, about inheritance. The limit of life and death, the limit of longevity, no one here can escape. One day everyone will be buried by time, and even the bones will turn into dust. The reason why Wu Yu wants to become an immortal so much is to escape this limit of life and death. But now, the difficulty of life and death appeared before Wu Yu's eyes. Maybe Yanhuang City Lord looked away, but Wu Yu didn't look away. He still didn't believe in life and death, so he wanted to become an immortal. But he also understands that for the Lord of Yanhuang City, this is indeed the case. They will always die and disappear. His life has been complete, so for him, death is not a terrible thing. What is terrible is that there is no death. Value. Therefore, even if he has to leave, Lord Yanhuang is very happy. Brothers and sisters of Shenzhou, under your witness, I want to pass on two things. As he spoke, the golden battle armor on the Yanhuang City Lord fell from his body, and finally turned into a small golden cloth, falling into his hand. He said, "This is the central heavenly Emperor War God armor. From today on, his new master it's Wu Yu." Wu Yu was startled and said, "City Lord, this is not acceptable. This should be left to the succeeding City Lord in the future." The Lord of Yanhuang City shook his head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I won't let you be the Lord of the city. It's just that they still have a long time before they can surrender the Taoist weapon, so you will be in charge first. One day, they can take the form of the Yuan Shen. If you become the new city lord, you will probably not be able to use your talents at that time." With that said, he handed over the central heavenly Emperor War God armor to Wu Yu. "You are going to the Teiku Immortal Road. The road there is dangerous. I hope this weapon can protect you. With it, I am here." It had to be returned in the future, so Wu Yu accepted it. He had an important responsibility now and it was not the time to be coy. Immediately afterwards, the Lord of Yanhuang City took out the Tiandi Pagoda, which was its first weapon and the first treasure of Yanhuang Emperor City. At this moment, he also handed the Tiandi Pagoda to Wu Yu and said, "This is also the first treasure. If you have any psychological burden from using it, you can just return it to Yanhuang Emperor City in the future. These two Taoist tools are also my last capital. I hope they can accompany you and have a brighter future." In the end, it was the egg. I kept it. Let me tell you something. The lunatic uses the Feng Qingyang official account to post graphic messages every day. Click on the GG picture at the bottom, and the official account will get about tens of dollars of GG income every day. The more clicks, the more income, so I hope everyone, if you see it, just click on it. These GG earnings lasted about 10.5 days, and once they collected 1,000 yuan, the madman would give it out as a 1,000 yuan red envelope and give it back to everyone, so that everyone could grab the red envelope for fun while reading. In a few days, 1,000 yuan will be collected. Detailed participation methods will be announced and the first wave of red envelopes will be issued. From now on, as long as someone clicks GG, there will be a red envelope. There are so many people ordering it, it is estimated that there will be a wave in 10 days. Whenever you see a lunatic talking about pictures and pictures in text messages, everyone knows that it's time to click on the GG picture at the bottom. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 542. The Lord of Yanhuang City smiled peacefully, took out the white egg, and finally put it in Wu Yu's palm. It felt cold to the touch. After going around in circles, it unexpectedly returned to Wu Yu's hand again. The Lord of Yanhuang City suddenly said solemnly, I heard from them that this is the reincarnation of the devouring demon ancestor. It is blank inside, and it will hatch only when the soul joins. If the devouring demon ancestor is a soul, he can escape from the confinement of the devouring demon mansion. When he recovers a little, he will probably look for this egg frantically, and he may be truly reborn. Therefore, this egg must not be allowed to be obtained. If necessary, it can be delivered to the strong of the ancient Yanhuang country. That's it. Unexpectedly, this is the true face of this egg. The purpose of the Ghost Emperor at the beginning was not only this egg, but also the soul of the devouring demon ancestor of the devouring demon mansion. So he said that he would leave after getting this egg, which was actually a lie. In the final analysis, it must be stopped. Perhaps, throwing it in the ancient immortal road where the devouring demon ancestor cannot go for the time being is also a good choice. After all, it is still difficult to go to the Yanhuang ancient domain. Because you have to seize someone else's ancient immortal talisman. Understood? Wu Yu nodded. Anyway, it must not fall into the hands of the devouring demon ancestor. It was not safe to put it in Wu Yu's hands before, but he was going to the ancient immortal road, so it would undoubtedly be safer to give it to him. When putting down the egg, the Yanhuang city lord's arms fell weakly. He didn't have much strength. He persisted until now because many things were not explained clearly. When everything seemed to be said now, he smiled gently, glanced around, and looked at all the people who were looking at him with respect at this moment. Wu Yu still felt very uncomfortable. Even if the Yanhuang city lord looked down on life and death, he didn't look down on it. He couldn't stand such an elder leaving him at this time. This feeling was just like watching Sun Bo leave at the beginning. Anger, hatred, and pain all accumulated in his chest, ready to explode at any time. Obviously, even the Emperor Marshal might not be able to do better than Wu Yu. This burly man also had 2 lines of tears at this time. He knelt down in front of the Lord of Yanhuang City, clenched his fists, and tears flowed down his face. What happened here? The 2 preparations for the future, and the things delivered to Wu Yu have all been completed. The Lord of Yanhuang City thought about it and it seemed that there was nothing else to do. Seeing the Emperor Marshal's pain and pride, he shook his head and said, "Brother, a 7-foot man, don't cry. From now on, everything in Yanhuang Emperor City will be handed over to you. No matter what, Yanhuang Emperor City cannot fall." Yes, the Emperor Marshal gritted his teeth and said with difficulty. These were farewell words, and the Emperor Marshal didn't know what to say. Then the Lord of Yanhuang City said to everyone, "My fellow countrymen of Shenzhou, now that things have come to this, I can only wish you all to defeat the evil spirits, escape the disaster, and return peace to Shenzhou. I will leave first." Sorry. He faced death so calmly, and this mentality made everyone present admire him very much. At this time, the Lord of Yanhuang City undoubtedly reached a new peak in thought and spirit. Unfortunately, his body was exhausted. Although I was prepared in my heart, when I suddenly looked up at this time, I saw that even though the Lord of Yanhuang was hunched, he was still sitting upright on the round platform, full of righteousness. Even his eyes were like torches, and his eyes finally fell on the wall, with a complicated look. Finally, he turned to the crowd and whispered, "Friends, see you again if we are lucky." After saying the last word, his face was relaxed and smiling. At this time, a light breeze blew over, and the body of the Yanhuang city lord was dissipating. In the blink of an eye, a good person was dissipated by the wind and turned into flying ash, which was completely spread on the entire round platform, as if to show his will. Even if he died, he would guard outside the devouring heaven demon mansion and not allow anyone to enter. The Yanhuang city lord is gone completely. Even if Wu Yu was prepared, he was struck by lightning at this time. The thin layer of dust on the round platform was the Yanhuang city lord and his will. When Wu Yu saw this scene, he always felt that his throat was stuck, very bitter, very depressed, and he couldn't say a word. At this moment, the surroundings were as silent as death. The Emperor Marshal and his brother have been practicing together for hundreds of years. How deep is their friendship? Outsiders can't guess it at all. Seeing Emperor Marshal lower his head and sit down on the ground with his burly body weakly, you can know how irritable and painful he is. Wu Yu was also very irritable, just like when Sun Wudao passed away, but the difference this time was that the person he hated was now imprisoned in another world, and he couldn't take action against him immediately and kill his enemy with blood. Besides, he was not the puppet of the devouring heaven demon ancestor. In other words, it was the devouring heaven demon ancestor who caused all this. He was under this round platform, the place guarded by the Lord of Yanhuang City. Wu Yu's biggest impression of him was his figure sitting cross-legged on this round platform, motionless for decades. Emperor Marshal stood up at this time, walked around the round platform, and laid a magic circle to keep the dust left by the Lord of Yanhuang City on this round platform and melt it into the round platform. From today on, unless I die, no one can think of breaking here and going inside. This is his oath, his promise, and his guarantee to the Lord of Yanhuang City. Holy Lord Taixu sighed and said, "The deceased is gone, I feel sorry for you. Di Yan is admirable, but we need to obey his last words more carefully. 10 months is not a long time. We have to find a way immediately. There must be something. We are more than 80% sure that we will kill these two people when they escape to avenge Di Yan. First of all, what is most needed is the magic circle. I suggest that we use this wall as the core and use these 10 months to arrange it. Every major sect, the most peak killing array. The magic circle is definitely needed. In addition, no matter what killing method there is, we must prepare it first, link by link, leaving no chance of life or death for them. At the same time, we must also superimpose our various methods on this round platform. The defensive formation of the big section Tianxia Sword Immortal Dao. They are already thinking about it, and even know what magic circle they want to set up. Commander Emperor, what do you think? Holy Master Taixu saw that his mood was very unstable, so he still wanted to ask his opinion. The Emperor's eyes were red. He was a little tired and said, "I can't control myself now. Don't ask me yet. Let me take it easy for a few days. You can arrange everything first." I've never seen him struggling like this. Holy Master Taixu nodded and said, "Sure, let's go out first. Xuanhuan Dao sect also needs to wrap up, and then we can arrange things here. The Emperor's commander really needs to be alone here, otherwise, if he immediately throws himself into the preparations, he may not be able to pass this test in his heart." At the signal of Holy Lord Taixu, everyone left the city lord's mansion, and Wu Yu followed them out. There were many disciples from Yanhuang Emperor City waiting outside. They were all waiting for the Emperor Commander to come out and ask about the more than 5,000 Yanhuang Immortal army. Wu Yu could only let them go back first. Wu Yu Holy Lord Taixu stopped him. Among this group of people, Wu Yu is indeed a special being. Holy Lord. Everyone surrounded Wu Yu. I'll leave the matter of Taku Immortal Road to you, Holy Lord Taixu said. Wu Yu now has too much anger accumulated in his chest, just like the Emperor Shui, but not as serious as the Emperor Shui, but it is not uncomfortable either. What he wants most at this moment is to take out the vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar and smash everything in front of him. Maybe only by being so crazy can he feel better about the pain and depression in his heart. Everyone, please go back to Xuanhuan Daozong with me first, take your respective teams back, and then bring out the beings who are at least the 8th level of Zifukanghai realm and above, and gather them in Yanhuang Emperor City. At the same time, if you have good methods or capital, can be sorted out. This matter cannot be publicized for the time being to avoid causing panic among the people. Only those at the 8th level of the Zifukanghai realm and above can know the truth and participate in the action. What do you think? Everyone has no opinion on this. When encountering such a thing, everyone should calm down. On the side of the monster, Holy Lord Taixu emphasized, this matter is related to the survival of the Shenzhou. It is impossible for the monster to escape, so the two of you need to participate in the next step with all the means, strategies, and methods. Ying Huang said, no need to talk nonsense, we know how to do it. This old devil is no longer just a small fight between us. Then Holy Lord Taixu looked at the Shushan Sword Immortals, especially the Qiang Sword Immortal, and said, before this matter, Nangong still needs to be able to control himself and focus on the overall situation. If he can pass this level, he can then deal with personal grudges. Is it possible? This is indeed a bit cruel to Qiang Sword Immortal. It was too much for him to bear, so he chose not to speak. However, Tianxia Sword Immortal replied on his behalf, Holy Lord, don't worry, we know what to do. Qiang Sword Immortal has been waiting for a long time, about a year or so. At this time, the Yao Guang Sword Immortal said, there is a small problem. If this matter cannot be announced, in order to convince the public at the Shenzhou Tianlong battle, Wu Yu still has to win first place before he can go to the Taku Immortal Road. Otherwise, it's hard to explain to so many people. After all, the battle between the Divine Continent and the Dragon is not a child's play. This does make sense. If this matter were directly announced to the world, then the remaining 6 participants would probably have nothing to say. After all, Wu Yu's journey to the ancient Immortal Road was responsible for the survival of the Divine Continent. But since it cannot be said that the powerful people of Shenzhou are prepared to deal with it alone, then they must come up with an explanation. It's okay, I will participate in the battle below. When everyone was in trouble, Wu Yu stood up and said, this will be easier to handle. Of course, they also have enough confidence in Wu Yu. In that case, let's go back to Xuanhuan Daozong first. After the decision was made, everyone quickly returned to Xuanhuan Daozong. They were extremely urgent when they came, but when they left, everyone felt heavy and desolate. Only Wu Yu was getting more and more irritable, his eyes were getting redder and redder, and the hatred and anger in his heart were gradually rising, as if his whole body was about to explode. If you want to grab 1,000 yuan red envelope in 10 days and a half, remember to add the crazy person's WeChat account, Feng Qinjiang. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 543. This time, we rushed to Xuanhuan Dao sect first. On the one hand, we wanted to bring back the people from the major sects and go back to make some preparations. On the other hand, we wanted to determine the first place in the Shenzhou Tianlong battle. The news that the Lord of Yanhuang City has passed away cannot be revealed for the time being. This time is not like the battle between ghosts and gods in the East China Sea. Although the combined danger of these two people is no less than that of the Ghost Emperor, at least it will not be as huge as last time and cannot be concealed at all. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. After all, it would be quite troublesome if it caused panic, especially in remote areas and among mortals and immortals. Wu Yu, You also need to calm down. After all, with such an important responsibility, you have too many things on your shoulders. Being angry will make you lose your ability to control. While heading to Xuanhuan Daozong, Holy Lord Taixu said. Wu Yu nodded, but didn't say much. The death of Yanhuang City Lord made it difficult for him to let go. After all, the incident of the heaven-devouring demon ancestor was caused by him. Sometimes when he thought about it, he still blamed himself. Just like this, he warned himself that he must succeed in his journey to the Teiku Immortal Road. At this time, his mind was filled with images of the time when the Lord of Yanhuang City passed away. Every expression and detail was so heavy for Wu Yu, and these heavy weights made his mental irritability and anger continue to rise. It even caused some bloodline changes. In the imagination, if the angry emotion turned into reality, it would be a golden ape, irritable, running around, grinning. In the chest, there is a volcano that has been gathering momentum for a long time and is erupting crazily. The magma is surging and the fire is splashing. It is like the chest of a giant beast, violently inciting and making a bang-dong-dong collision sound. This hatred will never disappear until revenge. His enemies are now Duoming Shensu and his daughter, and even the heaven-devouring demon ancestor. Oh, it was all my fault. If I had been more cruel, Qin Shensu would not have the chance today. Holy Lord Taixu sighed. Duoming Shensu was cultivated by him. Tianxu Sword Immortal said, this has nothing to do with you. The main thing is the heaven-devouring demon ancestor. Even if he doesn't control them, he will control others. It's just that the two of them have a better foundation, and he is more likely to succeed. The 7 Immortals of Shushan are now also a great force. Most of the people were worried, with a big stone weighing on their hearts, and the atmosphere was extremely solemn. Wu Yu lowered his head. Finally, Xuanhuan Immortal Mountain arrived, flying in the sky. Looking down, the strong men from all over the divine continent basically stayed here, waiting patiently and discussing with each other. When everyone returned, they were discussing in full swing. They knew the content of Yanhuang City Lord's summons, so they were still very nervous at this time, and they were basically ready to participate in the battle at any time. Being arranged here to wait for orders, everyone was extremely anxious. Especially the captains and generals of Yanhuang Emperor City had gloomy expressions on their faces, pacing back and forth on Emperor Yi's battleship like ants on a hot pot. The entire Shangxian battlefield was in full swing, and people's expressions were very impatient. Someone sent a message to Yanhuang Emperor City, but no one in Yanhuang Emperor City knew what happened. However, news of the disappearance of about 5,000 Yanhuang Immortal Army has already reached here. Many of them are subordinates of the commander here. When I saw that all the people who went to Yanhuang Emperor City had rushed back, and there were even 2 more Tianxia Sword Immortals, judging from the expressions of these sect masters and sect leaders, it seemed that nothing major had happened, and they didn't look like it's like going through a life and death battle. Everyone felt a little more at ease. It didn't seem that serious, it didn't look like there was bad news. In fact, before coming back, Holy Lord Taixu warned everyone to adjust their moods. Most of the people present were in the form of soul, so they naturally knew what was going on. So at this time, it seemed that everyone was relatively relaxed. After Holy Lord Taixu came back, he quickly said, there was a little misunderstanding, but the matter has been resolved. I have left you all worried and waiting for a long time. After hearing what Holy Lord Taixu said, although they didn't know what the misunderstanding was, it was not their turn to worry about it, so most people felt relieved. Only here in Yanhuang Emperor City, everyone was a little puzzled because the Emperor Commander had not returned. The leaders and sect masters of each major sect, as well as the 2 demon emperors of the demons, returned to their respective camps. Many people are still confused as to what the details of this interruption are, but all the sect masters and sect leaders have prepared their words. When someone asks, they just talk casually, and people know that it is the Lord of Yanhuang City who was summoned to tell ghost stories. The emperor was reborn in the East China Sea, so he summoned everyone, but it has been confirmed that this is false news. In fact, this is a rhetoric made up by the sect leaders and leaders. They did not explain the details, so no one would doubt the authenticity of this statement. After all, no one would have thought that all the top powerhouses on the divine continent would join together to hide them. Later, it will be revealed to monks and demons above the level of Xuanhuan Sword Master and Yanhuang General, allowing them to participate and jointly arrange the enemy. After retaking his seat, Holy Lord Taixu said, "Before, Wu Yu defeated the Wuxian blood qi, and everyone has seen it. First of all, congratulations to Wu Yu. He is invincible in the battle against the Mega-Divine Continent. In the next few battles, although there's not much suspense, but it still has to go on, so now we'll draw the list for the second group of battles." The words of Holy Lord Taixu were clearly supporting Wu Yu in getting the first place. But what he said seemed to be true. Wu Yu had indeed amazed the world. The remaining 4 8th level Zifu-Kanghai realms, including Jilinglong and Nangongwei, are definitely no match for Wu Yu. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Therefore, in fact, the remaining 6 people do not seem to have particularly strong fighting spirit, except Nangongwei. At this time, everyone became quiet, as if what happened in Yanhuang Emperor City had never happened, and Holy Lord Taixu asked the mortal child to draw lots to choose the next 2 opponents. In fact, at this time, Wu Yu fell into a whirlpool. His eyes were stern and a little scary. He couldn't stand such a peaceful environment. The death of Lord Yanhuang kept magnifying in his heart, stimulating the rage in his heart and blood again and again, making him very violent. For him, every minute and second now is a waste. Holy Lord Taixu and the others could still endure such calm preparations, but he couldn't. In the end of life and death, there is always death. People really have to obey destiny and take death as the end. Is it impossible to transcend heaven and earth and be immortal? The death of the Yanhuang City Lord inspired him to think about life and death. Sometimes I think at night that one day my thoughts and ideas will disappear, and after death, I will have nothing. The fear from the heart will come over like a tide, and Wu Yu will be frightened like a nightmare. He was angry and irritable. I don't want to die. When the Lord of Yanhuang City turned into dust before his eyes and died, this scene was too frightening for him. His emotions were like rolling lava. When Holy Master Taixu was still announcing the next 2 people to fight, Wu Yu could not control himself. He suddenly left the field. At this time, he had accumulated too much anger and hatred in his heart, and he needed to vent it. Wu Yu's actions attracted everyone's attention. At this time, he came to the Shangxian battlefield and glanced around for a week. In his sight, his remaining 6 opponents did not escape his violent eyes at this moment. I don't want to waste time, all 6 of you come together. Whoever defeats me will be number 1. Now, he just wants a good fight. To most people, Wu Yu's current behavior of breaking the rules is really inappropriate and makes people feel particularly rude, impulsive, and proud. Therefore, as soon as this statement came out, everyone was in an uproar. Before this, people had great respect for Wu Yu and had a good impression of him. That's why they were so shocked at this time, and they didn't even believe their ears. Arrogant, arrogant, and arrogant. This is not appropriate, Wu Yu. Let's follow the rules of the Divine Continent's Dragon War. It won't waste much time now, there are no Emperor commanders and city lords here in Yanhuang Emperor City. Several top generals are the first to stand. It turned out that these words were said by General Gu, who had a good relationship with Wu Yu. In other sects, such as the Xuanhuan Immortal sect, the Xuanhuan Sword Master said displeasedly, "Don't be arrogant and arrogant after winning 2 victories. The Shenzhou Tianlong battle is not a place for you to act wild. Don't embarrass yourself here, hurry up, get out." Of course, Wu Yu ignored her and continued, "We are all six together, don't you dare." It is estimated that only the sect masters and masters knew how Wu Yu was feeling at this time. Apart from the Emperor Commander, he was the most angry and irritable when this happened. Moreover, the Lord of Yanhuang City also entrusted him with an important task. For Holy Lord Taixu and the others, the number one in the Shenzhou Tianlong battle must be Wu Yu. Judging from Wu Yu's current level of persistence, if this battle can help him overcome this difficult situation in his heart, that would be pretty good. They could see that Wu Yu was now trapped in the confusion of monasticism. This was an inner demon. If he could overcome it, he would achieve greater achievements. If he could not overcome it, his future would obviously be affected. The most feared thing is to fall into doubts and question your own way. Then it will be difficult to move forward in the future. At this time, on the side of the human cultivators, all the sect leaders and masters looked at each other. First of all, Holy Lord Taixu waved his hand and said, "Wu Yu deserves his name. It is not a big deal to occasionally change the rules for him. This way it will undoubtedly make it more difficult for him to win the championship. Whoever defeats him will be number one in the world, and it will also be considered a great opportunity for the other six. Since it was proposed by him, I believe no one is willing to refuse. What do you think?" He understood Wu Yu, so he wanted him to defeat this inner demon. At least on the way back, he discovered that Wu Yu had been in an inner struggle. Tianqi's sword Immortal said, "Since it can become more exciting, why not do it?" I, Xuanhuan Immortal sect, agree. With the two of them at the beginning, there would be no suspense next. The other human clan leaders and masters had already agreed. As for the demons, they had nothing to do with them. If Wu Yu hadn't suddenly stood up, they would have just left. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 544. The decision made by these top beings in Shenzhou this time seems a bit surprising. Although everyone has no objection, after all, Wu Yu is now sure to win the first place, and he has increased the difficulty of winning the championship, so why not others do it? But at least everyone thought that people like Taixu Saint Lord and Tianqi Sword Immortal were the ones who respected tradition the most and were unwilling to break the rules. For example, they were very disciplined in not attacking demons and causing wars. This is the premise to ensure that the Shenzhou Tianlong War can continue. Since even people like Taixu Saint Lord who uphold the rules did not uphold them, most of the others, while being stunned by their decision, of course did not continue to say more. For example, Xuanhuan Sword Saint still had hatred for Wu Yu in his heart, and he could only shut up after being slightly looked at by the Sword Immortal above. After all, even Qiang's Sword Immortal had no objection to Wu Yu's behavior of breaking the rules. This matter is a bit strange, but it is also allowed to think that Taixu Saint Lord and Tianqi Sword Immortal seized the opportunity to fight for Ji Linglong and Nangong Wei's chance to win the championship. As for how future generations view this rule-breaking behavior, it has nothing to do with most people. The one who will take the blame will also be the Taixu Saint Lord. The Taixu Saint Lord's eyes were gentle at this time. He didn't say much and directly announced that the other 6 people would go to the battle. He stared at Wu Yu with calm eyes. Wu Yu looked at him at this time. He knew very well that he was helping himself. Sometimes the irritability in his heart could not be calmed down by a few words. Wu Yu knew that it was wrong for him to be so uncalm, but knowing it alone was useless. The other 6 participants, facing such an opportunity, of course, had no objection. Wu Yu was now standing in the center of the Shangxian battlefield. 6 participants from 6 forces came from all directions. 4 of them were in their 40s and were at the 8th level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm, but Ji Linglong and Nangong Wei were not weaker than them. Ji Linglong was right in front of her. She was a little confused about the decision of the Taixu Saint Lord at first. At this time, facing Wu Yu, she could only bite the bullet and come up. This ethereal fairy-like woman, with a white long skirt fluttering, was pure and holy, as if she was exiled to the earth. Before Wu Yu appeared, she was the real number one in Shenzhou. So she was also proud in her bones. Now, she held the Taoist artifact Immortal Palace map in her hand and approached Wu Yu. On the Immortal Palace map, the magic circle began to flicker faintly. The ink in this painting was all part of the magic circle. Since ancient times, arrogant people are not considered heroes. I miscalculated you, Wu Yu Ji Linglong said indifferently. With the Taoist artifact in her body, she is indeed a great threat. The Immortal Palace map will unfold at any time, and the power of the Taoist artifact will explode fiercely. It is said that if the Immortal Palace map is used to a deep level, it can summon the guards of the Celestial Fairy from it to fight for Ji Linglong. As soon as she finished speaking, a burning breath came from Wu Yu's left side, and 9 different colors of flames flickered in front of her eyes. As expected, when facing Wu Yu, Nangong Wei had already transformed into a fairy beast phoenix. The huge, holy, and fiery fairy beast flew in the sky, flapping its 9 colored wings. Every time it flapped, the world was in flames. The phoenix eyes, looking down, stared at Wu Yu with a little obsession. Maybe she knew that Wu Yu was not in a good state now, but having the opportunity to fight Wu Yu and then defeat him was the purpose of her trip. No matter what changes, it could not be stopped. The other 4, each used their own means. Although they did not have Taoist weapons or fairy beasts, they all had the 8th level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai Realm's strong Purple Mansion energy, which Wu Yu did not have. The 6 looked at each other, and Ji Linglong said, "Everyone, since Wu Yu has made such a choice, we don't need to be polite. We can defeat him first and work together. As for the champion, we can decide it fairly. I believe that you don't want to be looked down upon by him like this." Ji Linglong has dominated for many years. Although she is a woman, she is actually very proud. Gasuyuti is not enough to challenge her majesty and will. Although Wu Yu suddenly appeared, she still has a strong desire to compete. Okay, Miss Ji is the disciple of the Taixu Saint Lord, so we can trust her. My suggestion is to deal with Wu Yu unanimously. Everyone expressed their opinions and finally looked at Nangong Wei. Although Nangong Wei did not speak, she believed that she would not be vague about dealing with Wu Yu because she had not only transformed into a fairy beast, but also sacrificed a Taoist weapon. The burning world furnace was actually hidden under her feathers. Just after the discussion, it is estimated that they are ready to take action. Originally, after Wu Yu defeated Wuxian Blood Qi, it seemed that there was no suspense, but Wu Yu's incident made the end of the Shenzhou Tianlong War full of suspense and tension. If Wu Yu lost the chance to win the championship because of this arrogant behavior, people can only think that it was his own fault. Why didn't the emperor come? If the emperor was here, he would obviously not let him do this. If Wu Yu loses, it will be really embarrassing. No matter how you look at it, this kind of stupid decision is not something that someone like him can come up with. Or is it that Wu Yu only has the courage of a common man, has always been extremely arrogant, and looks down on others, and we overestimated him? When everyone was discussing, the battle suddenly broke out. Wu Yu fought 6 people alone. The first to attack was not the 6 people, but Wu Yu, who was surrounded by the 6 people. At this moment, Wu Yu instantly turned into a golden ape, his bones stretched out, and his body became thick and strong. His eyes were bloodshot, and an extremely violent breath, like a violent beast, kept bursting out of his body and sweeping away. Such a violent Wu Yu still made the 6 people a little scared. Extra-legal clone. After the fairy ape transformation, Wu Yu pulled out his golden hair at this moment and blew it suddenly. At once, thousands of clones appeared around him. Originally, he was weak, but now it seems that the 6 people are really weak. They are about to be besieged by thousands of golden fairy apes. However, everyone probably knows that Wu Yu's extra-legal clone has weak resistance and can be easily blown up, so they are not too worried at this time, and they act quickly. The 6 people almost simultaneously activate the magic weapon, display the great power or the mysterious art of heaven and earth, and attack. Fight. Only by fighting and venting can one feel better at this moment and be freed from the hatred. Wu Yu's eyes were bloodshot. When he roared, all the clones around him followed him and roared with an earth-shaking roar. Thousands of people roared, and the violent momentum made the onlookers dumbfounded. They had to admit that Wu Yu was powerful. But then, it was time to shock them. Central Heavenly Emperor's Divine Art. Wu Yu used the 10,000 Emperor's Furnace Divine Art to defeat the Wuxian Blood Qi last time, but he had never used the Central Heavenly Emperor's Divine Art, so people didn't know that he had learned both divine arts. This was a qualification that only those who were the Lord of Yanhuang City and the heir of Yanhuang Emperor Marshal had. At this moment, Wu Yu threatened, shaking the heavens and the earth, and a blazing light shone from his body. For a moment, the divine body that was originally transformed from the immortal ape, all the flesh and blood, turned golden. He transformed into a golden existence as if it was made of gold, immovable as a mountain. At this moment, if the emperor descended and ruled the world, the power of the ancient emperor, people had only seen it on the body of the Yanhuang City Lord. After all, this was the unique skill of the Yanhuang City Lord. But this alone is definitely not shocking enough. It just shows that Wu Yu's body is stronger and more defensive on the basis of the indestructible body of Vajra. The key is that it is not just him. At the same time, thousands of clones with him also performed the Central Heavenly Emperor's divine art at the same time. For a moment, thousands of apes as if they were made of gold appeared. They were neatly lined up, majestic, violent, and looked indestructible. Such a scene scared the 6 participants. After Wu Yu completed the Central Heavenly Emperor's divine art, the thousands of eyes that looked like swords stabbed at the 6 people. At this time, the 6 people were about to attack, but they were frightened by the Central Heavenly Emperor's divine art. At this moment, thousands of clones suddenly divided into 4 square formations, each with about 250 clones, and they attacked 4 opponents respectively. Wu Yu himself took on 2 opponents alone. The 2 opponents he chose were Ji Linglong and Nangong Wei, not because they were both peerless beauties, but because they both had Taoist weapons. Their Taoist weapons could break the clone's Central Heavenly Emperor's divine art, but the other 4 could not. The riot first occurred between the clones and the 4 participants. Each of the 4 of them was surrounded by more than 200 clones. When the clones surrounded them, each of them was ferocious and almost did not stop. One by one, they began to cast Taoist arts again. This time, black anger swept. It was the 10,000 Emperor's Furnace divine art. Previously, Wuxian Blood Qi was defeated by Wu Yu's 10,000 Emperor's Furnace Supreme God art. At that time, Wu Yu had thousands of clones attacking at the same time. Although there are only more than 200 now, about dozens of them did not use their magic weapons, but waved their super spiritual magic tools to restrain their opponents first. They were all under Wu Yu's control and were all part of Wu Yu's body, so the tactical execution was very fast. The people who restrained the opponent had just restricted the opponent's actions, and the remaining 10,000 Emperor's Furnace Supreme God art directly exploded. Boom boom boom. The remaining 4 were attacked intensively before they escaped and before they could use many of their abilities. After possessing the Central Heavenly Emperor Supreme God art, the clones' resistance was not weaker than their opponents, so the clones that went out to restrain the opponent played a major role. Their opponents just forced them away with violent power, and they were directly swallowed up by the 10,000 Emperor's Furnace Supreme God art. This is the advantage of the human wave tactics. Under the pouring, the 4 were eliminated instantly. Heaven swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 545. When the four top young warriors were defeated by Wu Yu in a short time after the battle, everyone present realized that Wu Yu had not used up all his strength in the battle with Wuxian blood qi. When Wuxian blood qi, who had just recovered a little, saw this scene, his face became even uglier. On one hand, he wanted to take revenge, and on the other hand, he was unconfident in himself and afraid of Wu Yu. At this time, he could only hate and fear Wu Yu. Under the siege of Wu Yu's two great divine arts, the four warriors quickly admitted defeat. After all, there was no hope of winning the championship. No one could cover up Wu Yu's brilliance at this time. All they could think of was to avoid getting hurt. When the four people admitted defeat, Wu Yu's original body and Ji Linglong and Nangang Wei had not really started fighting. 6 people were besieged, and 4 were gone at once. The strong men of Shenzhou looked at all this in amazement, and then looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Before this, they thought Wu Yu was too arrogant, but now the facts are in front of them. With such ability, he does have the capital to be arrogant. At this moment, Wu Yu's status in Shenzhou has climbed to the peak that no one can shake. The remaining suspense is very small. However, Ji Linglong and Nangang Wei both have Taoist weapons, and it is these Taoist weapons that add some suspense to the battlefield between the two sides. After using the clone to defeat the four, Wu Yu did not rely on the clone to besiege them, but put away the clone and faced the two beauties alone. The chest is stagnant and needs to be vented. These two beauties are the peak geniuses of this era in Shenzhou, and they are the only ones at this age who can barely be compared with Wu Yu. They are proud in their hearts, so even at this time, they may not admit defeat. Although the two had not agreed in advance, they were very tacit in their actions at the same time. Facing Wu Yu, who had transformed into a fairy ape at this time, holding the vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar, and looked violent and scorching, they used all their strength when they took action. The explosion scene broke out again. 9-layer divine fire domain, Nangang Wei flapped her 9-colored wings, and the divine fire rolled violently. Within her magical power, the entire battlefield of the upper immortals was under her control. However, this was just a method she used to slightly restrict Wu Yu. After performing her magical power, Nangang Wei flew into the sky. Under her wings, the burning world furnace suddenly fell. The weapon was rotating and expanding, and the magic circle on it was shining. In a very short time, just like when she defeated Zhuing, the burning world furnace had covered the sky and the sun, and then it was even more covered, covering Wu Yu and Ji Linglong in the burning world furnace. Boom! The huge burning world furnace covered the vast land, raising thousands of dust. This inverted cauldron was majestic and scorching. Nangang Wei's phoenix body fell on the burning world furnace at this time, fiercely urging the magic circle on the Taoist instrument. Nangang Wei was waiting for this moment, so at this moment, she was like a madman. Of course, no matter how terrible the burning world furnace was, as the controller of the Taoist instrument, she could control it and not hurt Ji Linglong. After all, she still had to rely on Ji Linglong to fight Wu Yu in the burning world furnace. When Wu Yu was trapped by this Taoist instrument, the burning world furnace, the suspense of the last battle seemed to appear again. At this moment, Wu Yu was no different from falling into the ghost-devouring volcano. The surroundings were not flames, but liquid magma. Under the activation of the magic circle inside the burning world furnace, the golden magma directly engulfed Wu Yu. Wu Yu was like entering a vast sea of golden magma at this moment. The vast sea was endless, and there was death everywhere, as if there was no way out. Not far away, Ji Linglong in white had a white halo on her body, which made her unaffected by the golden magma of the world-burning furnace. In this case, Ji Linglong looked cold, her long skirt fluttered, and swept over. She opened her red lips and said, "Wu Yu, you are too arrogant and have no fundamental respect for us. The two of us will work together to deal with you and have another fair fight." Accompanying her voice, She unfolded the Immortal Palace map in her hand. For a moment, this ink painting was horizontal in front of Wu Yu, and the ink on it changed. There seemed to be clouds and mists floating in the Immortal Palace, and there were also flowing waters. If it was a real world, it seemed that the fairy music could still be heard. Ji Linglong was like a holy fairy, with skin as white as snow. She looked particularly ethereal and unattainable in this golden lava. At this moment, she and the Immortal Palace map seemed to be connected by blood. Facing Wu Yu, she needed to control the Immortal Palace map to the maximum extent. Just like Nangang Wei, at this time, she was also accumulating the power of the entire burning world furnace, squeezing and burning Wu Yu. Wu Yu was now under the terrifying impact of the golden magma, which made him always under super strong oppression, and his combat effectiveness was greatly reduced. This was because the attack he was least afraid of was this type of fire. If it were someone else, such as Zhu, he would not be able to hold on for long in this burning world furnace. Two great instruments, attacking at the same time. The ones who attacked were the two most outstanding beauties in Shenzhou who were about the same age as Wu Yu. Perhaps many years later, they would surpass Tianxia Sword Immortal and Taixu Saint Lord, become the new masters of Shenzhou, and become peerless women who stood above all living beings and could only be looked up to. Ji Linglong pointed his finger at the Immortal Palace map. Immortal Palace Guard. As his voice fell, the ink painting on the Immortal Palace map changed instantly. It can be seen that in a fairy palace, a figure appeared vaguely, and then the ink gradually condensed towards the side. It seemed that the figure was getting bigger and bigger, and the effect formed was that in this fairy palace map, a black figure rushed out, holding a spear. The black figure was all black, and at this moment broke through the fairy palace map and appeared in front of Wu Yu. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. It was a figure condensed by ink. The shape can be condensed or dissipated. When it dissipated, it was like a ball of ink, and when it condensed, it was like a heavenly soldier and general, with lethality. Such a fairy palace guard is like an immortal body. This is the divine power of Ji Linglong's Taoist weapon. She is the next leader of Xuanhuan Dao sect who is being cultivated by Taixu Saint Lord with all her strength. Naturally, her potential and strength are infinite. At this moment, the destructive magma of the burning world furnace and the water ink fairy palace guard in the fairy palace map, one side oppressed and burned, and the other side directly held a spear and fought Wu Yu head on. Just like that, you want to suppress me. Wu Yu seemed to be not close to beauty in this anger. His violent eyes even made people have no doubt that he would be ruthless, and when he attacked, it was indeed the case. Buzz. In anger, the golden ape and the water ink fairy palace guard, the vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar and the spear collided instantly. Bang! With absolute power, even if Wu Yu was hindered by the burning world furnace, he still overwhelmed the opponent and broke up the water ink fairy palace guard. However, the fairy palace guard was not only so powerful. Wu Yu's vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar was very strong, but if this fairy palace guard did not die, it would immediately condense after being broken up, and two appeared in a short time. Two immortal palace guards appeared without stopping, one on the left and one on the right, appearing and disappearing, confronting Wu Yu head on. Their spears were very penetrating and could penetrate Wu Yu's flesh and blood. The ink entered his flesh and blood, which was very scary, as if it was a kind of poison. Bang bang bang. Wu Yu looked violent, and fought with the immortal palace guards one after another, breaking up the immortal palace guards dozens of times in a short period of time. Unexpectedly, every time the immortal palace guards were broken up, the opponent would be divided into two. At this time, dozens of immortal palace guards holding spears, together with the burning world furnace, brought some trouble to Wu Yu. I know you are powerful, but you can't underestimate women, Ji Linglong said angrily. I underestimated you, so what? At this time, Wu Yu said something very unromantic. he suddenly stopped fighting with the immortal palace guards in the burning golden magma of the burning world furnace, and instead met Ji Linglong's eyes with his eyes full of flames. Ji Linglong was angry and manipulated the Taoist weapon. The immortal palace guards took advantage of Wu Yu's pause and swarmed up to kill him. In fact, Wu Yu understood one thing during the violent battle, that the immortal palace guards were invincible. The immortal palace map and Ji Linglong in the distance were actually the key. So at this time, he directly used the fire eyes and golden pupils, the second level of soul refining. When his eyes met Ji Linglong's moist eyes, Ji Linglong let out a cry, and his soul was forged by Wu Yu at this moment. When affected, the immortal palace guard seemed to be out of control for a while, and Wu Yu suddenly jumped up at this moment. Under the magic of walking, he scattered 8 immortal palace guards all the way and suddenly appeared in front of the immortal palace map. Without saying a word, the Hanhai Tyrannosaurus pillar stabbed it. Bang! All the immortal palace guards were blown to pieces. Under the burning of the soul refining, Ji Linglong, who only had the Taoist weapon, was no match for Wu Yu. She was far inferior to the Wuxian blood chi. Wu Yu hit Ji Linglong's head with another stick, which basically made her head bleed. "I admit defeat," Ji Linglong shouted hurriedly at the moment of shock. In fact, she was already scared by Wu Yu and broke into a cold sweat. After all, the Hanhai Tyrannosaurus pillar was too violent. If Wu Yu came up at this time, she estimated that her face would be ruined. Of course, Wu Yu just scared her and let her admit defeat. After she said this, Wu Yu directly withdrew and retreated. He only had one enemy left. This feeling of crushing was very pleasant. It was so pleasant that he gradually walked out of the shadow. Sure enough, only absolute strength can dominate everything. Otherwise, no one can protect it. Only Nangongwei was left. "I'm speechless for someone as arrogant as you, Wu Yu. Today I lost to you, but don't be too happy. One day, I will be above you," Ji Linglong said with gritted teeth. She had never been so mad before. She didn't know that Wu Yu didn't want to be the lord of Yanhuang City, and thought that in the future, their relationship would be like that of the lord of Yanhuang City and the holy lord Taixu. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 546. Although Nangongwei was outside the burning world furnace, she clearly knew what was going on inside. Of the 6 people, only she was left. After Wu Yu defeated Ji Linglong, he did not listen to her anymore. Now in the turbulent golden magma, he was hit again and again by the power of the burning world furnace. But Nangongwei found that she had used the burning world furnace against many opponents, but the effect against Wu Yu was the worst. The effect was estimated to limit Wu Yu's performance to less than 30%, and in fact, the damage caused to Wu Yu for such a long time was not much. Zhu was also burned for such a long time, but even the scales were almost burned. At this time, Wu Yu's flesh and blood were only red. At this time, his attention fell on the endless golden magma ocean around him. Buzz. Wu Yu carried the Hanhai Tyrannosaurus pillar and disappeared in front of Ji Linglong. He had already rushed up. Young people are arrogant, and they do have the capital to be arrogant. Maybe I am too proud, so I am a little unwilling to be defeated by my peers, but I have to say that Wu Yu is actually not bad, at least he has great righteousness in his heart. Thinking in this way, although Ji Linglong was defeated, she felt much better and did not have so much hatred. However, after being defeated this time, surpassing Wu Yu in the future has also become her goal. At this time, Wu Yu's face was silent, breaking through the heavy golden magma, and erupting all the way. The vast sea Tyrannosaurus column broke through the endless lava, causing the entire burning world furnace to vibrate violently. Outside the burning world furnace, Nangongwei had already felt his explosion. He was coming to the top of the burning world furnace. The burning world furnace was very quiet before. People thought that Nangongwei and Ji Linglong would have some hope if they joined forces. The longer the time, the more confident they were. But at this time, the inside of the burning world furnace seemed to be detonated, as if a giant beast was awakening, boiling completely, and the entire burning world furnace was shaking violently. Looking at the face of the fairy beast Phoenix, it became more solemn, and everyone knew that Wu Yu must have defeated Ji Linglong. Sure enough. At this moment, Wu Yu had seen the top of the burning world furnace, which was full of various magic arrays. Now those magic arrays, under Nangongwei's purple palace energy, were running rapidly. The symbols changed and swallowed and spit out vast flames, rushing towards Wu Yu. The flames also contained these other forces, which also rushed towards Wu Yu at this time. Outside the burning world furnace, the fairy beast Phoenix tried its best to stop Wu Yu. This might be the most important moment for her. But this time, she still didn't let her violence. When he rushed to the top of the burning world furnace like a sharp sword, his muscles bulged. This violent technique increased his strength and raised his violent will to a new level. 10,000 Junfu Haiyan Formation. This stick stabbed into the sky. Wu Yu activated the magic formation on the reverse scale of the dragon. Suddenly, he seemed to hold a dragon in his hand and let out a shocking dragon roar. He and the dragon tore all the magma and appeared on the top of the burning world furnace in an instant. At this moment, Wu Yu made a loud noise, twisted his waist with 10,000 Jun force, swept from small to high, and sent a stick into the sky. The two Taoist weapons collided at this moment. Buzz. At that moment, a muffled sound came from the entire burning world furnace, which almost deafened Ji Linglong. She was inside the burning world furnace. Suddenly, under the strong shock, the golden lava separated from her body. She stood on the ground and looked up. The huge burning world furnace was knocked into the sky. If Nangongwei hadn't controlled it at the end, it would have hit the Emperor Yi warship. The phoenix fluttered its wings in the sky, bathed in the nine-color flames. Her burning world furnace was even broken at this time. Although it can be repaired, it is estimated that it will not be used for the time being. Wu Yu's stick temporarily destroyed her Taoist weapon. Now, Wu Yu held the Han-Hai Tyrannosaurus pillar in one hand and rose slowly from the ground. In his eyes, it was like a raging fire, and the golden flames swept over his body. He rose in front of Nangongwei. The soaring phoenix was not defeated yet. When Wu Yu stared at her, she might still be a little trembling in her heart. However, she naturally did not give up. At this moment, she encouraged the nine-colored fire to rise into the sky and then dive down. "You are too slow." Wu Yu rushed to her side in an instant with the magic of walking. Looking at this young woman, perhaps he had calmed down a lot at this time. All the resentment in his heart was almost cleared when he broke the world-burning furnace with a stick. After saying that, the Han-Hai Tyrannosaurus pillar smashed on her back. Wu Yu didn't use much force, but he also beat Nangongwei to the ground. The huge phoenix smashed on the ground, raising dust. Wu Yu appeared on Nangongwei in an instant. After being hit by Wu Yu's stick, Nangongwei realized at this time that she was as fragile as a bird in front of him. She was even unable to maintain the body of this fairy beast and restored her human form. She just stood on the ground blankly, looking at Wu Yu in silence and fear. Now, the battle is over. Wu Yu also consumed a lot of energy. He returned to his human form, put away the Han-Hai Tyrannosaurus pillar, and landed in front of Nangongwei. It had been a long time since he could face her face to face and face everything between them. In her eyes, there was still the stubbornness, and disgust for herself, and in the disgust, there were many strange emotions. It seemed that there was no difference from before, but in fact, things and people had changed. After the Shenzhou Tianlong battle, Wu Yu gradually calmed down. Just now, he had been tortured by the demon of life and death, but now he has figured out many things in his heart. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The death of Yanhuang City Lord seems to no longer be a difficult hurdle in his heart. Life and death are determined by fate. Yanhuang City Lord can't escape, but Wu Yu did not give up. In the life and death of Shenzhou, outside of his own life and death, looking at Nangongwei again, she is actually still young, many of her ideas are very extreme and impulsive, she is like a rebellious girl, once she hates, she can never get rid of it. Feel that you are very powerful, do you look down on the world? From now on, no one can compete with you, the world will also be your world in the future, there is no use saying anything else, I can only say wait, we are not over, by Shenmo's revenge I have to avenge him, maybe what I say now is all big talk, but one day, I will defeat you, Wu Yu, I will defeat you. She is very obsessed. So she was a little crazy when she spoke at this time. There was an extremely strong light flashing in her eyes. Wu Yu was very familiar with this light. It was just like him. She was very passionate and persistent. Things that were determined could not be changed. So, in fact, Nangongwei was exactly the same as him. They were both a ball of fire. That was why they would burn their opponents when they were close to each other. Wu Yu pursed his lips. Sometimes when he stood in front of Nangongwei, he was more like a brother, just like she used to call him that. He witnessed her growth. She spent her youngest years with him. It was all a coincidence that they could get to this point. If there were no so many accidents, maybe they would have entered the double fairy palace, and maybe they would be a fairy couple at this moment. Okay, I'll wait and see how far you can go. Now that you have become a phoenix, you really have a bright future. You must make good use of your talent so that I won't look down on you. What can Wu Yu do to her? He found a way. Rather than watching her become disheartened, suffer a blow, and never recover from it, it is better to let her set her own goal. At least she is moving forward. Wu Yu's goal is to become an immortal. If her goal is to become an immortal, maybe one day she can also walk on this road. Being strong will not do her any harm. Anyway, he has already disappointed her, so try to make her at least a strong person, so that she can grow and survive under various circumstances. When she heard Wu Yu's words, Nangongwei was very angry. She felt that Wu Yu was being arrogant and laughing at her. A strong rebellious heart was even more stirred in her heart. Since you have to wait and see, then you can watch it. One day, I will never give you the opportunity to kneel down and beg for mercy. Wu Yu, wait and see. Her eyes erupted with a strong flame. After saying the last sentence, she turned and left. She was very decisive and resolute. She did not stay here, but left directly and went back to the direction of Shushan Xianmen. As soon as Nangongwei left, the Shenzhou Tianlong War was completely over. At this time, Ji Linglong also returned to the side of Taixu Saint Lord. To be honest, she was also very unwilling. Wu Yu's arrogant attitude was too annoying. It is indeed a good thing to target him, Taixu Saint Lord murmured, for Ji Linglong to hear. At this time, he stood up, his voice surging, and announced loudly, at this moment. Everyone can see clearly that Wu Yu did not defeat 3 opponents one by one to win the championship, but faced the siege of 6 people, unscathed, and defeated all opponents. Therefore, in this Shenzhou Tianlong War, he is the well-deserved number 1 in the world. Everyone, you should have no objection. If not, cheer for our future of Shenzhou. He not only wants to tell everyone present, but also tell the entire Shenzhou that the future belongs to Wu Yu. Wu Yu looked around. Now, he has become the core of Shenzhou again. The last time he destroyed the Yanhuang Palace was because of luck and courage, and this time, it was because of strength. In everyone's opinion, after a few decades, Shenzhou will enter the era of Wu Yu. Wuxian Bloodqi, Zhuying, Ji Linglong, Nangongwei, Gasuyudi, etc., can only become supporting roles in his eyes. He rose from a mortal, and now won the first place in the Shenzhou Tianlong War, and his name will be known for eternity. So at this moment, what greeted Wu Yu was the cheers of the entire Shenzhou. At this moment, he reached the highest peak of Shenzhou. This feeling is wonderful, right? City Lord, he is also waiting for me to reach this day. Unfortunately, he can't see this scene. Wu Yu knew it very well. The Shenzhou Tianlong War has come to an end, and the next most important task is the ancient Immortal Road. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 547. The Shenzhou Tianlong War ended in the most. In fact, the leaders and masters of all the major sects had something on their minds. For others, the end of the Shenzhou Tianlong War might be the end, but they knew that it was just the beginning. Next, the preparation for more than 10 months is the most important thing for the survival of Shenzhou. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Therefore, all the major sects, together with the demons and the Tianyi clan, left in a hurry at this time. Originally, after the Shenzhou Tianlong War, there would be a period of celebration, and as the host, Xuanhuan Dao sect would entertain the heroes. However, this time there was no celebration. For ordinary people, it was a bit strange. Wu Yu, who won the first place and successfully obtained the qualification to enter the Taiku Immortal Road, also returned to Yanhuang Emperor City with the people of Yanhuang Emperor City. In the absence of Emperor Shui, the Emperor Yi warship was driven by several generals. The Black warship returned to the Yanhuang Emperor City in a mighty manner. On the Black warship, dozens of generals gathered together, and among them was Wu Yu. At this time, General Jinluan first said, "Wu Yu, it can be seen that something seems to have happened, and it is not as simple as a misunderstanding. Can we know what happened?" They are not stupid. From the decision of the Holy Lord Taixu to change the rules of the Shenzhou Tianlong War, to the fact that all the major sects have left in a hurry, and then to the Emperor Marshal's failure to come, so many details clearly indicate that something has happened. I don't know. After returning, you will wait for the Emperor Marshal's news. Wu Yu can't take care of the matter of preparing to kill Duomingshan Zhensu and Tianhai Yufo. His current task is to prepare for the ancient Immortal Road. In this regard, the Emperor Marshal, the Holy Lord Taixu and others will plan with each other and make arrangements. Okay. The generals also knew that even if Wu Yu knew the truth, he would not be able to say it, so they had to wait for the Emperor Marshal. A few days later, they returned to Yanhuang Emperor City. Now Yanhuang Emperor City was a little desolate. Although Wu Yu won the first place in the Shenzhou Tianlong War, because a large number of people were missing, everyone was busy looking for people, so it was difficult for the whole city to get excited. After returning, people still had to wait for the emperor to come out to explain. In a few days, the emperor must have recovered from his pain. After returning to Yanhuang Emperor City, the generals asked the emperor to come to the city lord's mansion to reveal this matter. In addition, they were also eliminating the impact of the disappearance of 5,000 people. These things were handled by the emperor and his men, and Wu Yu didn't have to worry about them. Wu Yu's only task was to make himself as strong as possible when the ancient Immortal Road opened in about 2 months. Among them, the Yanhuang city lord handed over 2 of the most important things to Wu Yu, that is, the Central Emperor God of War armor and the Emperor Pagoda. The Taixu Saint Lord said that when entering the ancient Immortal Road, you must have enough confidence and be as strong as possible. Mastering one more Taoist weapon is actually an extra capital to save your life. Therefore, Wu Yu returned to Kishan camp to prepare for the sacrifice of the Taoist artifact. He now has the experience of controlling the Tyrannosaurus pillar in the vast sea. Although it is difficult, it is not impossible to try. On his left and right hands, there is a piece of golden cloth on one side and a pagoda on the other. Among them, the level of the Emperor of Heaven pagoda should be higher than the central Emperor of Heaven god of war armor. These two Taoist artifacts reminded Wu Yu of the protection and guidance of the Lord of Yanhuang City. He was Wu Yu's guide and opened up a magnificent world of Yama for Wu Yu. Let Wu Yu really see how big the world is. This time, Wu Yu will take his former Taoist artifacts and walk into the ancient immortal road, which can also be regarded as a kind of inheritance. Time is running out. Before refining these two Taoist artifacts, Wu Yu has one more thing to do. In fact, more than half a year ago, he had just reached the third level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm, and in the past 6 months, he has been working hard to expand the Purple Mansion Kanghai. With the ancient spiritual energy of the Yanhuang Emperor City and the large number of Kanghai Yuankai pills he has made rapid progress. But sometimes, the improvement of the mind is the fastest way to improve the realm. In the final analysis, it is the Tao. The Tao is illusory, but it really exists. The life and death of the Yanhuang City Lord made Wu Yu's Tao fall into a quagmire, and he had many doubts on the road of cultivation. However, he was not so easy to defeat after all. His inner determination also surpassed many of his peers, and even the heart monkey was firming his growth along the way. In the last battle of the Shenzhou Tianlong War, he defeated the heroes and won the first place. In the final battle, he stood in the most glorious place. The strong strength actually solved Wu Yu's doubts. All the doubts about the Tao disappeared at this moment. He saw the road that truly belonged to him, which made his will to become an immortal more determined. The Lord of Yanhuang City said that life and death are determined by fate, and everyone will have a moment of death. That moment brought a great shock to Wu Yu. Fortunately, the inheritance of the Immortals and the strength of transcendence made him regain his confidence, and even at this moment, his heart reached an unprecedented peak. The great Dao is gradual. But there are always sudden realizations, which make Wu Yu make rapid progress. To become an immortal, the first step is to abandon the fate of life and death. Many people are wrong about this, and many people cannot do it, especially after the great Dao stagnates and the lifespan gradually ends. Even the Lord of Yanhuang City is actually like this. The purpose of becoming an immortal is to escape life and death. Wu Yu has the inheritance of an immortal, so his vision is naturally much higher. So far, he has never seen another person who aims to become an immortal. This is the reason for his vision. Sometimes, heart and vision determine many things. Wu Yu was not in a hurry to sacrifice and refine the Taoist artifact. He knew that there was a more important thing, which was to ponder the Tao in his heart, think over the recent changes over and over again, and integrate everything he understood into the vast sea of Zifu. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. He has a large amount of Kanghai Yuankai pills, so he is not afraid of consuming them at this time. All these Kanghai Yuankai pills are used to build a vaster Kanghai in his Ki-I cave. The Emperor's commander occasionally came to see Wu Yu, and he found that Wu Yu was not in a hurry to sacrifice and refine Taoist weapons, but was improving his realm. What he saw was that Wu Yu kept devouring the Kanghai Yuankai pill at an astonishing speed, as if it was a bottomless pit. Yes, it can be clearly seen that Wu Yu's purple mansion is becoming more and more magnificent. This time, he was a blessing in disguise. Brother trusts him so much that he even places such a heavy responsibility on him. Perhaps, he is really China's greatest hope in the next 10 months. During this period of time, the sect leaders and masters of all the major sects gathered at the Yanhuang ancient well. Even the 2 demon emperors came. In the face of the disaster of annihilation, humans and demons temporarily put aside their countless years of hatred. The emperor's commander only visited Wu Yu occasionally. After continuous pondering and tempering, Wu Yu finally successfully entered the 4th level of the Zifu Kanghai realm a month later. The improvement in the realm caused a sharp increase in his Zifu Kanghai realm, and its scale was at least larger than that of the ordinary Zifakanghai realm. Those at the 6th level are even more powerful. In this way, a group of clones who are waiting for food can continue to improve. Wu Yu does not need to worry about the improvement of the clones. As long as he gives them the Kanghai Yuankai pill, they will refine it on their own. The only depressing thing is that they are too consuming, even if Wu Yu now has enough Kanghai Yuankai pills, but he still knows that it may not be long before he is still at the end of his rope. That is probably on Teku Immortal Road. What is there in Teku Immortal Road? The super genius of the Yanhuang ancient territory, or the mysterious crisis in the Teku Immortal Road. Wu Yu knew deeply that this place was not easy to break into. The last time Duoming Shenjiansu entered, he came out quickly. After reaching the 4th level of Zifakanghai realm, his combat power soared again, and the gap between him and the young people of Shenzhou would only become wider and wider. Nangongwei and Ji Linglong both targeted him, but Wu Yu thought it was impossible to catch up with Wu Yu unless they had other adventures. Your indestructible body has been stagnant for a long time. If it is not improved, the advantages of the physical body will only become smaller and smaller in the future. Besides, there are many people with powerful physical bodies in the Jambu world, so it will not be as barren as here in Shenzhou. Unfortunately, the materials needed for the 4th level of the indestructible body cannot be found here in Dongsheng Shenzhou, Ming Long said. Is there an ancient immortal road? Wu Yu asked. In this damn place like Teku Immortal Road, anything may appear, and of course nothing may appear. It's purely a matter of luck. I advise you to have too much hope. You can't tell anything about that place. Maybe you can't. Entering, you will be in a dangerous situation. If you react slowly, you will be wiped out, let alone trying to seize other people's ancient immortal talismans. We are not fools. Can I give you such an important ancient immortal talisman? Ming Long was not optimistic about Wu Yu's trip at all. Wu Yu didn't care. No matter what she said, she still had to go to that place. He was just thinking about where else he could become stronger. In terms of the two major magical powers, there has been no progress yet and we need to continue working hard. The indestructible body lacks materials. Taoist skills, I just practiced 2 kinds of divine skills. Then, there are only these 2 Taoist tools left. Which one is better to be sacrificed first? Ming Long said, of course it's this tortoise shell. To attack the Taoist weapon, you have the stick, so you need to be defensive at this time. This can give you one more life on the Teku Immortal Road. This Heavenly Emperor Pagoda is indeed terrifying. But I'm afraid you won't be able to surrender for the time being. Let's wait until we enter the Teku Immortal Road. It should be impossible for Wu Yu to sacrifice and refine 3 Taoist weapons. For the time being, he can only choose the same thing. He also thinks it should be the central Heavenly Emperor War God armor, otherwise attacking the Taoist tools with 2 kinds of weapons may not be a good thing. After making the decision, he was already ready. With about a month left, he had to get the central Heavenly Emperor War God armor before the Teku Immortal Road opened. 3 updates, complete. Remember to add Madman's WeChat ID and click on the picture. In the past 2 days, I will give you a guide on how to grab red envelopes. Follow WeChat, Fengqing Yang. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 548. These 2 Taoist tools are not only extremely powerful, but also more precious because they were passed down to me by the Lord of Yanhuang City. Wu Yu also made a decision to pass it on in the future and return it to the new city Lord of Yanhuang Emperor City. At his current level, which is only the 4th level of Zifakanghai realm, it is already very difficult to control a Taoist weapon. Therefore, it is actually a big challenge to master the 2nd Taoist weapon. You know, people like Qiang Sword Immortal and others who are in the realm of soul transformation actually only master 1 Taoist weapon. Fortunately, The Central Emperor War God armor and the vast sea Tyrannosaurus pillar have slightly different properties and different emphasis, so there should be no conflict between the two. You know, the weapon spirit of the Taoist weapon is already very intelligent. This weapon armor can not only enhance the defensive power, but also contain power. It can increase my Zifuyuan power to a certain extent when it is released, which makes up for the weakness of my Zifuyuan power that is not as good as others. At this moment, for me, it's not the icing on the cake, but the timely help. The trip to the Teku Immortal Road is full of various unknown factors. In that strange place, all the people you meet are strange opponents. Only combat power is probably the only thing that can determine your life or death. Besides, there are many underwater monsters there. Start the sacrifice. After Wu Yu became familiar with the Central Heavenly Emperor War God armor, he began to use his spirit to infiltrate and refine this weapon. Taoist weapons have their own way, and one must surrender to their way before it is possible to control them. Wu Yu entered a world of golden light. There was only golden light in this world, and there seemed to be golden metal barriers around him, trapping Wu Yu in a sealed space. Those golden rays of light were dazzling, like the sharpness of a sword, piercing the body and causing a dull pain. Bathing in the golden light is actually like being in a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. The golden light is raging, and only great perseverance can persevere. Are you the one who will succeed the Lord of Yanhuang City? You are still too old. Wait until you reach the realm of soul transformation before you can control me. Faintly, there was a sound coming from the place where the light shone brightest in front of him. Wu Yu looked intently and saw that deep in the light, there seemed to be a lion made of gold. It was mighty and domineering, not angry but mighty, in the sky. It is the style of an emperor. I'm afraid this should be the weapon spirit. The male lion has a lush mane, and its eyes are like a pair of scorching suns, burning with golden flames. The dazzling golden light of the entire world actually shines on its body. I have already mastered a Taoist weapon, and I have long been able to use it. Today, I am here to recover you. Wu Yu said firmly. Taoist weapons are like ferocious beasts, they must be strong and ferocious before they can be conquered. It is still difficult to truly convince the other party by just using words to persuade and please. In the past, the same was true for ritual artifacts. The golden lion in front of him, after listening to Wu Yu's words, shook his head and said, "Young man, don't lie in front of me. With your ability, how can there be a Taoist weapon that you are willing to master? You'll know if it's true or not if you try it. This is a struggle of spiritual will, and Wu Yu cannot lose at all." Provoked by Wu Yu, the golden lion roared suddenly. His Majesty as an emperor was now provoked by Wu Yu. He originally wanted to advise Wu Yu to leave first, but he didn't expect Wu Yu to be ungrateful. It's no wonder he didn't. Boom! The golden lion landed on all fours, tensed its whole body, then rose up and charged towards Wu Yu. For a moment, the light of the entire world was rushing towards Wu Yu. At this moment, it was like being thrown into the turbulent river and sea. Heart monkey. Wu Yu was now very experienced. Facing the violent impact of the golden lion, he remained motionless. He simply closed his eyes and visualized the mental ape. This is just a confrontation of spiritual will. Under normal circumstances, it will not cause real injuries. At most, it will just force Wu Yu out, but Wu Yu can definitely come back in. Visualize the mental ape. The ape in my heart is always there, the unparalleled monkey king bathed in fire, strong, tall, powerful, scornful, rebellious, ignoring everything, reversing life and death. Everything about Xuanhuan pointed out a path for Wu Yu. At this moment, he was like the possessor of the unparalleled Monkey King. To the Golden Lion, he was originally just a weak person, but at this moment, in front of his eyes, he turned into a giant beast that could compete with him. This violent force his will was something that none of the previous Yanhuang city lords had ever had. Young man, you are indeed extraordinary. Emperor Yan passed me on to you, so it makes sense. In fact, this Taoist armor does not exclude Wu Yu. He just wants Wu Yu to use the Taoist armor when he can control him. In the spiritual world, the golden ape and the golden lion are both golden. They are fighting each other and suppressing each other. At this time, Wu Yu fully demonstrated his power to defeat each other. However, the golden lion also adheres to his own principles. He is a test, so Wu Yu will not be allowed to successfully control this armor before he is completely defeated. Whether you can possess the Central Emperor War God armor depends on whether you can conquer me. Right now, it's not enough. The golden lion's powerful voice echoed deafeningly in Wu Yu's ears. This aroused his fighting spirit even more, but it was just a Taoist weapon. It couldn't scare him, so he just persisted. In this way, in this game of perseverance and endurance, it is simply a matter of who gives up first. Wu Yu has a heavy responsibility on his shoulders and is about to enter the Taku Immortal Road. How can he give up? This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. In the past 10 days or so, after a long period of fighting, gambling, and Wu Yu's constant struggle to the death, the Central Heavenly Emperor War God armor was finally conquered by him, and he willingly became Wu Yu's Taoist weapon. These 10 days of life and death struggle have reached Wu Yu's limit several times, which made him understand that at his current level, being able to master 2 Taoist tools is indeed the limit. The Emperor's pagoda can only be put aside, otherwise the 3 it is also a headache for great weapons to compete with each other. Controlling the Taoist weapon was also quite energy consuming. After that, Wu Yu rested for a few days and had a long sleep before his energy recovered. To him, this weapon armor is almost an upgraded version of the Yanhuang Immortal armor. It is not complicated. There are tens of thousands of magic formations in it, guarded and pulled by 2 main formations. The first main formation is the Central Heavenly Emperor War God Guardian Array. This array is the defensive core of this weapon armor. It is involved with tens of thousands of other arrays. All defensive arrays can offset and neutralize enemy attacks. The second main formation is called the Central Heavenly Emperor's Sun Gathering Divine Formation. This formation can absorb all light and condense it on Taoist tools. It assists Wu Yu's Zifu Yuan power and controls other Taoist or magic tools, causing damage. The effect of Wu Yu's Purple Mansion Yuan power becoming stronger, judging from the current situation, can almost increase Wu Yu's Purple Mansion Yuan power to 120%, the effect is powerful. Although the Taoist armor does not have a direct attack array, these 2 main arrays can actually bring considerable help to Wu Yu. Wu Yu has been familiar with these magic formations for several days. The magic formations on the Taoist tools are basically complex and mysterious. A deeper understanding will also allow Wu Yu to make some progress in the magic formations. He calculated the time and found that the gate to the ancient Immortal Road was almost about to open. It was time to say goodbye, so he left the Yanhuang Emperor city, quietly used the divine movement technique, and flew with his sword towards the direction of Dongyu Kingdom. And go. After experiencing the last disaster, the Lord of Yanhuang City protected Dongyu Kingdom and established many magic formations. Ordinary ghost cultivators could not enter at all. Even if the Yuan Shen incarnation tried to force his way in, he would make a huge noise. Since then, Dongyu state has completely calmed down. Everyone knows that Wu Yu, the former prince, became an immortal and protected Suqiao. From then on, Suqiao went through generations without problems. In Suqiao, Wu Yu is a well-deserved god. Today, Suqiao's national power is at its peak, and the country is peaceful and the people are safe. Seeing this immortal kingdom, Wu Yu thought of the huge Yanhuang ancient kingdom in the Yanhuang ancient territory. The ancient Yanhuang country is worth tens of millions of times magnifying Suqiao. It is a country of immortals. If all the rules and levels were set up according to a real country, it would be very scary. Suqiao is also very hierarchical. Once in the palace, he knew more about the power struggle and the hierarchy of status in the legion. Obviously, that ancient country should not have such freedom. A country is a country, and there is still a difference between it and a sect. He returned to Wudu. Recently, Suqiao Ankang and Wu Yu are very free, so they focus on cultivation. With Wu Yu's help and a lot of things, she has made a lot of progress in the qi condensation realm. Soon after, she rushed to the Golden Pill Avenue. There is no problem with the situation. If you reach the Jindan Dao realm, you will have at least 300 years of life. In the royal garden courtyard of the palace, Wu Yu saw her. She was still so gentle and charming, and her every smile made Wu Yu Ruruo return to the harbor where he was born. "You're back, how are you?" Wu Yu wiped the sweat from his forehead and asked with a smile. "Good." In Wudu, Wu Yu spent a few days of quiet time, traveling and fishing with Wu Yu. "It's like I'm back to my childhood." Wu Yu stretched. Next to him, Wu Yu smiled softly. "Sister, I'm leaving. I'm not sure how long it will take this time, but I will always be back." Wu Yu stood up. "I guessed it." Wu Yu pursed his lips, still smiling. Wu Yu looked at her and said, "Don't miss it. Don't worry, I will take care of myself. Just go about your business with peace of mind." Wu Yu stood up and the two of them hugged each other. "One day, I will ascend to the immortal palace. When the time comes, I will also make you immortal and stay young forever," Wu Yu said in her ear. "I trust you." Wu Yu's simple and direct words gave Wu Yu great motivation, allowing him to remember her trust no matter what he encountered in the future. When one person attains enlightenment, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven, why not? He left resolutely, went to Tongtian Sword Sect and said goodbye to Feng Xia, and then returned to Yanhuang Emperor City.